teenagers do all sorts of stupid things, and perhaps it's amazing that we all live through it, actually, as far as I'm concerned.
The man, the myth, the legend. Time to listen, time to learn. Before we get into it, though, you know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. All right, let's get into it.
I had a friend. He didn't come to a good end, this person. He was a real good friend of mine when I was in junior high and high school, and he was kind of crazy. And he was tall. He was about 6'7", and he was pretty thin. And we used to go out to the bar now and then, and in many of the bars that we lived in this little town, there were bullies. And these were guys, and I worked in the bars, and I used to watch these guys, and they'd basically, there was a handful of them in town, pretty psychopathic types. And they'd go to the bar, and all they'd do is sit there and wait for someone to come in who they could beat up. And they knew who it was as soon as they walked in. That's actually why they were at the bar. And so they'd wait till someone came in who didn't look very confident and who could likely be intimidated by this sort of thing, and then they'd tell them to come outside for a fight, and if they didn't, well, then they'd, of course, make fun of them, and if they did, well, generally they'd beat them up. My friend kind of caught on to this trick, and he started going to bars, and every time that someone like that came near him, he'd go outside and fight with them. And one of the things he observed right away is that almost inevitably when he went outside with them, they'd shake hands and make friends. So as soon as and it was really remarkable watching him, because he wasn't a particularly physically powerful person, although he was extraordinarily tall. But he had started to play this game, and he did it for a long time. And I don't remember him ever actually having to fight. He just stared them down fundamentally. So it was a very interesting thing to watch. But it was an indication to me of exactly how shallow this kind of bravado bullying actually is. But people don't find that out because they won't stand up, and it's not surprising.
Yeah, I remember one time I was 8 or 9, and it was at like this party. All the kids were in the basement, and there was this one kid who I'm pretty sure was like a year or two younger than us. He was like a lot smaller too, but for some reason he would just pick on me. And I don't know, maybe he could just sense that I was a pussy or something, because I don't know, like people just kept on picking on me. Like he would come up to me, and because he was so small, like I didn't want to like fight back or anything, and we just like avoided him. And then he found me, and he punched me right in my mouth, bro. And he punched me right in my mouth, and then like I ran to my dad, and then I'm like, yo, this kid punched me, and my dad's looking at me like, my dad looked at me with disgust, because I was crying when I told him. I was like, oh, this kid punched me in the face, and then he was like, my dad looked at me like, yo, if you don't do something about that, like I'm not gonna save you. So he's like, next time he does something, like go over there and like punch him back or something like that. So then, like, I went and I looked for him, right? And then he tried to come up to me, push me. And then, bro, I took him, and then I kneed him in the stomach so hard. Then I punched him in his face, and like, yo, I felt so bad. I felt so bad about it because he was really hurt. But after that, he didn't mess with me. I had to get it back in blood.
Yeah.
So in a way, like I was quiet too, and it's like those type of kids always pick out like the quiet kids, because I guess in a way we're kind of the same in terms of being antisocial, but they display theirs in like aggression. Well, I guess you're kind of the only connection that they have. Because now that I think about it, the kid who bullied me, he didn't have any friends. Like I was the only kid that he interacted with. I'm pretty sure, but it's just that he interacted with me by picking on me. So in a way, I guess
You were his best friend.
yeah, like we're best friends now. Maybe that's his way of being best friends, because he didn't know how to express himself.
He wanted to be that like oppressor and have you be the oppressed narrative type of thing, and that's maybe how some people have relationships, which is pretty toxic. They wanted to like dominate whoever that you're in a relationship with. That can be pretty toxic.
Anyways, they load up on food. Pinocchio's carrying a pie and an ice cream cone simultaneously, and then they're off to have a fight. And Lampwick says something like, it's good to punch someone in the nose sometimes, just for the, I think he says, heck of it. And so Pinocchio adopts this strut, and in they go to the rough house. And then in the next scene, you see this model home up for destruction. It's quite an interesting scene symbolically. The kids are starting to burn this place and to trash it, and they're dragging a grand piano down the stairs. The destruction of high culture, about which they're nothing but cynical, because they don't believe that hard work and sacrifice can produce something of any value, and they want to bring it down and destroy it. You should take some risks when you're a teenager and also later in life, and so if you won't take any risks, there's actually something wrong with you. But there's a negative element in that, well, teenagers do all sorts of stupid things, and perhaps it's amazing that we all live through it, actually, as far as I'm concerned. And some people take extraordinary risks, extraordinary risks, and they don't make it through at all, or they end up in a permanently antisocial population, and then they're, you know, basically career criminals. 5% of the criminals commit 95% of the crimes. It's another Pareto distribution. So I used to live in Montreal. I lived in a poor neighborhood, and one day I was out in the back alley building a fence because I was putting a little fence around my little tiny backyard, and there was a house across the alley down the street a ways where there was a lot of like not good partying. A lot of bikers were hanging around there, and I knew there was a little kid that lived there as well. Anyways, I was out there in the back alley pounding away on my fence, and these little kids came up, and they were little. They were like 3 and 4 years old, hey, and they spoke Joual, right, kind of really heavily accented Quebecois French, and so my French isn't good, so I could hardly understand them. But they were watching me hammer, and they got a little closer, and they had one kid who was clearly the leader, had a real scowl on his face, hey, and so they were watching, and I kind of motioned to one of them that they could use the hammer, and that kid said, and I'm going to mangle this, but he said "je volais" or something like that, and what it meant is I'll steal that. And so I thought, you know, and then he came over and he tugged on it, and he wanted me to take it, and he was quite angry, and well, I wasn't going to let him take it. And then so I couldn't engage him. I couldn't get him to play, you know, and his buddies were sort of hanging around behind him, and they wouldn't come and play because he wouldn't. And so he was hostile right away to me. And then, so the fence piece was laying out in the alley, and these little monsters started running across it, which I thought was really remarkable, you know. But it was terrible at the same time because they were really little kids. That shouldn't be happening when you're like 3 or 4. If that's happening at that age, things are not good. And so that kid was already like seriously not happy with the world. And you know, I'd been studying antisocial behavior.
Did you guys know any kids like that, like when you were at that age?
I remember like in like first grade or something, there was this kid. He was one of those like always loud in class, never let the teacher have a word, and the teacher didn't want to say anything kind of student. But like every single time I looked at him in his little like friend group, it was just always people who he just like dominated over, and the people just followed him.
Now there was a girl like that in my 6th grade class, and she used to give my teacher out like she had like a bunch of friends like follow her. She was like 5'5" in like 6th grade, like she was mad tall. She made the teacher cry, and even the next year after that, the teacher went from being a 6th grade teacher to a preschool teacher. Like it was that bad. That class was that bad. But me and my friends, we were the only group that didn't like follow her. But in a way, she acted real with us and not towards the people who were following her. Like with us, she was just calm in a conversation. But with the people who were like following her, like she always had to like crack jokes or like be loud.
That was it for Jordan Peterson. If you guys enjoyed the video, you know what to do. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Let us know what you think. Of course, if you like what we're doing here, click talk, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And catch you on the next one. Peace.